do not micromanage, let go, trust your team, and dare to delegate to them. You have to be a true listener, an active listener, because true listening conveys respect and encourages people to speak more, ask questions.
Thank you for listening to the podcast thus far. 2024, big year ahead. The one favor I would ask, if you're enjoying what you're listening to, is to press the follow and subscribe button on whatever media platform you listen to us, as it helps us grow our network and grow the podcast. So thank you and enjoy the podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast. I'm Conor McHugh, the founder of Alchemy Search, which is the only finance and tax experts in the UAE. I'm joined today by John Ioannou. John is a truly diverse and internationally accomplished leader with over 35 years of experience in a variety of industries. He lived and worked in various continents, including Europe, America, Asia, and for the last 12 years in the Middle East. Empowering people to achieve their potential is his life purpose, and that summarizes his passion for developing leaders. He has a blog on LinkedIn called Finsights with John Ioannou, where he publishes articles addressing leadership topics and issues, which I encourage you to visit. So welcome, John. How are you?
I'm great, Conor. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
We're delighted to have you here. Today, I want to discuss with you, John, a concept which I know is very deep to your heart, and that is psychological safety in the work environment. I want to explore with you why we need a psychologically safe working environment. But more importantly, how do we go about developing such working environments? First of all, what is psychological safety?
Thank you, Conor. Psychological safety is indeed one of the most important aspects of my leadership role, and is basically an environment in which people are comfortable expressing themselves and being themselves, being authentic. It's an environment where people can ask questions without fear of embarrassment or retribution, and they can speak up, they can voice themselves, and they don't worry to be humiliated or ignored or blamed for anything. It's an environment where basically confidence, trust, and respect prevails.
Okay, perfect. And I guess the next question, why is that important, and what are the key benefits?
Well, in a psychologically safe working environment, great things usually happen. First of all, mistakes are reported promptly, so actions can be taken before things get worse. People are not afraid to step out of their comfort zone. People are not afraid to think outside the box and basically share their thoughts and their opinions, and this really enhances innovation and promotes productivity. Also, it promotes coordination, collaboration, and teamwork, which are really important to create a competitive advantage in an organization. But these three, they require a psychologically safe working environment to thrive and flourish. You can hire the best people out there, but if you don't have a psychologically safe working environment, everything is wasted.
Okay. And I guess one point we always pick up being in the position we're in is that candidates say, it's a toxic work environment. What are your thoughts? Obviously, you're well seasoned, you've seen it all. Can you give us a bit of insight into?
Sure. A toxic work environment is exactly the opposite. It's an environment where people are afraid to ask questions, they're afraid to express their opinions. It's an environment where people think that if they say something, it will go against them. So this will definitely reduce productivity and growth potential. It will kill innovation. And it's an environment where people basically feel anxiety and stress all the time.
Okay. And then, to create, these positive working environments, if you're, for any listeners, CFO or whoever it is, someone in senior management, how do they go about creating these positive environments? Because I guess that's the $1 million question.
Yeah. So, as you said in the beginning, Connor, throughout my career, I had the opportunity and the privilege to live and work in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
I was able to work in different cultures. I was able to work with different people. I interacted with colleagues of different backgrounds and different experiences and different beliefs and value systems. And throughout my experience and my learnings and the mistakes I've made along the way, I created a framework which I nourish and I try to put in action every day where I work. And this framework consists of 4 components. And while I suggest a flow to follow for these components, you have to bear in mind that building a psychologically safe working environment, it's an uphill battle, and it's a process. It's not really a destination. It's a journey that you have to go through to do that, and also it's very fragile. It can shift with any changes you may have along the way. And these 4 components are interlinked, interrelated, and they influence and impact each other along the way.
And John, so with the framework then, what is the first component?
So the first component is basically laying the foundation and creating the ground for fertile conversations and fertile sharing of ideas, basically. And this, Connor, is about building relationships and showing appreciation, gratitude, and genuine care for your team. And I know in many people this comes naturally, like you, Connor, but others really have to work on that. But it's quite simple. It's basically caring about your team, asking questions, beyond just the day-to-day work. What can I do to help you? How do you feel? How's your weekend? Celebrate small things like birthdays, anniversaries, the birth of children within the group, small things like that. You show that you genuinely care about their life beyond what is in work, and that's the most important part. When your team sees and feels that you sincerely care about them, not just as employees but just as people and their families, they would really be more collaborative and more willing to open up. And I think Theodore Roosevelt framed it really nicely when he said, nobody cares how much you know unless they know how much you care.
Oh, it's a nice little line. So I guess in short there, it's just be a good person.
Yeah. Just be a caring person.
Yeah, it's a caring person.
Look, building the relationship. You have to do that, whether it's work or anywhere in life. That's the foundation of where you need to build a meaningful relationship.
Yeah, well, look, the way I view it is that, manners cost nothing, and, it's nice to be nice. So again, for any aspiring leaders or managers, it's just having that human touch, which, is very simple to do. But for someone in a senior position, they don't know how much that will impact the more junior person if you actually show a bit of empathy and emotional intelligence. And then the second piece.
The second piece is about leading with purpose. Purpose-driven leadership, Connor, is another topic that I'm very passionate about, but we're going to leave that for a future episode. Yeah,
good. There we go. We got he's locked in the series already.
For the purpose of this framework, is you need to basically remove ambiguity and clearly articulate the plan. That is, communicate the objectives and what you're trying to achieve, whether it's a strategic plan, 3 to 5 years, whether it's an annual plan, or whether it's a project that you need to work on. People need to understand not just the what and the how, but the why. And here I will borrow Simon Sinek's Golden Circles, where Simon basically said, everybody knows what they're doing. A lot of people know how they will do something, but very few people know why they do what they do. So this lack of clarity creates fear within the organization. You really want to eliminate this fear if you want to create a psychologically safe working environment.
Again, that's another thing I have noticed with a lot of people I interviewed is the calmness in these people. I consider you quite a calm person. I'm not sure what it's like maybe behind closed doors, but you're super relaxed, and I think that probably flows down from the top in a business. So I guess by now, where we're at with the framework is, people are feeling appreciated, trusted, feeling purpose within the organization. What's the next step?
So the next step is to get the people engaged. You need to get the people engaged and behind the scope of the program that you want to do. So, how you do that, you need to be organized. You need to communicate the agenda before you go into your meetings. You need to allocate agenda items to all the people so people, can participate. Let every member responsible for different aspects of the project. Create a sense of urgency. People are far more likely to participate if they feel a sense of urgency in a project. Do not micromanage, let go, trust your team, and dare to delegate to them. You have to be a true listener, an active listener, because true listening conveys respect and encourages people to speak more. Ask questions. It's really important to ask questions because questions stimulate discussion and create energy and a common purpose and creative solutions. Be willing also, Connor, to say, I don't know when you don't know something. Adopt the mindset of learning and engage in proactive inquiry. Be willing to say, I need help. No one needs a boss or wants a boss that knows everything.
Yeah, they don't exist, but there's a lot of people I think that do. Because I think touching on that point, I think there was a common issue probably, with the culture in this part of the world is that, everyone will tell you that what you want to hear without actually saying, no, this is wrong or I don't understand it. I even see it in everyday life here. If you're dealing with certain aspects in Dubai where you go to get something done, you're told it's done, but then it's not done. Contractors in particular. But yeah, I think, and I guess that's probably all breeding back from having that relationship, because you as the CFO or anyone in a senior position, if the junior team is intimidated by you or doesn't feel the respect or the relationship, and so that it can just sort of prove sometimes it's maybe not even the junior member of the team's issue that they are acting like that. If there was a good relationship with their boss or they're more senior, the conversation would probably flow a lot easier.
Absolutely. Have an open mindset, because open mindset always allows the exchange of new ideas, and it implicitly recognizes that there is always room for growth and development.
And then, from your side of things, for an aspiring person who's a finance manager now or a financial controller, if they want to get up to CFO level, what would you be advising them? If you were my mentor, for example, what would you be saying I should be looking to do?
So number one is I would ask you to tell me where you want to be in 3 to 5 years and why you want to be there. And then I would probably develop a plan of all the critical experiences that you need to fulfill, to accomplish, to get you there. And then we'll put an action plan in how we're going to get those critical experiences ticked and done.
And then, John, just concluding on the framework, the last stage, let's discuss that. It's around reactions.
Yes, the last step is about how you respond and react as a leader. Along the way, you need to be very mindful of how you respond and react, okay? As a leader, the shadow you cast, Connor, is huge. And you're scrutinized and closely observed all the time. Like it or not, you'll be judged, you'll be watched, and you set the tone. So it's very important. It's of paramount importance. Your first reaction is calm and is mindful, especially in a negative situation. Because if you act with anger or frustration, you basically kill the messenger. You will instill fear in the organization, in your team, and nobody would ever come and tell you bad news again. So you have to be calm. You have to respond constructively and with mindfulness. And you basically acknowledge the situation, explain that it's not their fault. Most of the time, the fault is created by external factors. But even if somebody's fault, you don't address it immediately. You address it later when the spirits are calm and you have time to reflect. So it's very important to not to react aggressively.
Yeah.
And hold your horse. It's very difficult.
It is very difficult.
Because the emotions, come into play. The mistake or the issue may be yours as well. Make sure you admit that. And
you see the red mist, and then
and you say, I'm sorry. It's very important to admit your own mistakes as well in situations like that, because you allow your team to see that you're not perfect and that you're open to feedback. Be vulnerable at the same time and open yourself up, because by doing that, you give permission to others to do the same. Yeah. And it's really important to demonstrate by example that you can reflect, you can grow and learn from your mistakes. Because again, by doing that, you destigmatize mistakes and failures, and people are not afraid to dare.
Yeah, I think for me personally, this is probably one of the toughest things, because if you get a message or an email or a phone call which you don't agree with, I've definitely in the past sometimes lost my rag a bit, and for me now, what I try and do is just not respond for a day or a couple of hours at least to take the emotion out of it. But that's something where I can definitely be at fault in those sides. But for you personally, has that been something you developed, or was there a stage where you were a bit of a hothead and you had to? What did you do to manage that? Because I imagine the positions you've been in, I'm sure you've been in many difficult conversations where you'll have your opinion, they'll have their opinion, and.
Well, if you ask my team, they would probably tell you that I'm still working on that, on that step. But it's a tough one.
It is tough,
I'm South Mediterranean. I'm very emotional as a person. So it's a combination for disaster. So I usually surround myself with my trusted team members, and I try to, as you said, if it's an email, then I try not to respond for a while. Yeah. Where in the past, I'd be straight. Let me into trouble, and I try to reflect, a lot. Reflection really does help, and talk things through with a couple of trusted people that you have in your team.
I think that's the framework. Pretty much
exactly.
Covered.
So in summary, the framework, as I said, consists of 4 components. Is building relationships. Number 1, that would lay the foundation. Is leading with purpose. Making sure your team understands why we're doing something. Then getting them engaged. Into the process. And last but not least, always bear in mind to react constructively. Without any emotions. And if you're trying to manage all of that, you will be creating a psychologically safe working environment that, as I said in the beginning, it's really fragile. Anything can change. If you have a new boss that's coming in, things can change. Or an employee leaves the organization, the balances change, So anything can change. It's a journey. It's not a destination. It's very fragile, and we should really protect it.
Thank you, John. My key takeaways from your framework are, like many worthwhile processes in life, driving fear out and creating psychological safety is a journey, not a destination. And psychological safety is fragile and needs continuous reinforcement. It may shift in the face of a new leader or a new circumstance. It is an uphill struggle with many slips, and it is a dynamic and constant process of corrections. However, we can take the first steps committing to the purpose. One conversation, one correction at a time. Thank you so much for coming on, and I think there could be a potential series in the making then.
Thank you very much, Conrad. I'd love to come back again.